Welcome back to It's Time for Yarn. Today we're continuing our color pulling series and learning how to get better at color pulling. We're going to be using this Mainstays 100% acrylic in blue multi. It can be found at Walmart for less than $3. I believe it's $2.97. It's a very affordable way to begin color pulling. We're going to learn how to take this beauty and turn it into this beauty. For this project, I'm going to be using two size hooks. I have an I9 5.5 millimeter and a 6 millimeter, which is also called a J. You can use whatever style hooks you like. These are the ones I had on hand. Use whichever ones work best for you. And you may have to change to different sizes according to your needs. But for me, these two I've discovered are going to be great for this project. I also have Mainstays 100% acrylic yarn in the color blue multi. This is super inexpensive from Walmart. It's less than $3. This is a great yarn to start with learning how to color pull. If you're not confident, if you're not sure if this is for you, this is a good yarn to use because it's not that much of an investment, less than $3, to see if you even like the technique. Okay, so this is what we're working towards. This is how it's going to look when we are finished with what I'm going to show you today. So let's get started. To begin, I was confident in this yarn when I purchased it because I pulled some of the end out from the center pull and looked at the yarn to see if it had a consistent pattern. So I noticed that it has a dark blue, a teal, then it goes to a really dark blue, then a light blue, dark blue again, teal, blue, teal. So I could see that it made a consistent pattern that continued, and so that, you know, let's give it a try. So I'm going to show you today how to color pull with this yarn. Okay, first thing we're going to do is start a chain, and this will also help us reveal what the pattern is of the yarn so we can see the consistency of the pattern. I'm starting with my 6 millimeter, my bigger hook. You kind of want your beginning chain to be a little bit bigger, just to help you have some room for your beginning stitches. Going to continue along. Continue along until I have made my way through the entire colorway of this yarn. If you'll notice so far, I have a beginning color here that's not sure if that's part of this colorway or the next one, but I see also a dark, light, dark, teal, blue, and then teal's coming up. So I think that's going to be the extent of our colorway here. I'm going to stop with that last color, that next color on the hook there, and take a look. Yes, this is a partial sequence, so I'm going to ignore that. I have a dark blue, light blue, dark blue, teal, blue, teal, and then it starts back again with the dark, light, dark, teal, blue, teal. So this is the extent of our color sequence in this yarn. So I'm not going to make my chain any longer, but if you're wanting to make something larger, you would continue this colorway as many times as you needed to make your garment or your blanket or whatever you're making the size that you would like it to be. So if I wanted to make this into a full-size blanket, I would start crocheting through the colors again until I have repeated the sequence, dark, light, dark, teal, blue, teal, dark, light, dark, on down until it is wide. It's as wide as I'd like it to be. Again, I'm going to make a small swatch, so I'm just going to go through the sequence once. Okay, now we're using the moss stitch because these are short color sequences, and we're going to start on the 4th chain from the hook. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, in experimenting with this yarn, I did all of the legwork, so you don't have to. I've discovered that with my gauge and my tension, I can make 3 moss stitches in each color. So here in this dark color, I've made 3 moss stitches after I've turned around. I am chaining, then skip 1, single crochet, skip a chain, So single crochet, chain 1, skip a space, single crochet, chain 1, skip a space, single crochet, chain 1. Again, I've made 3 moss stitches in the next color, which is the light color there. Now this blue should make 3 again, so let's give that a try. Let's see if it works. 1, 2, 3. Yes, so I get 3 in that color as well. Let's do the teal color. 1, 2, 3. Now with your tension, you may get 4 or you may only get 2. Depending on what size hook you use, how tightly or loosely you crochet, you'll have to discover what your magic number is for these colors so that you can be successful. But if you're following along with me, a 6mm will get 3 stitches per color. Let's go to our next color. 1, 2, 3. Now I have quite a bit of this dark blue left before I start my next color, so I'm actually going to take this out and loosen it just a tad because I want to stay consistent with the 3 moss stitches per color. That's a little better. There's still a little bit of that dark blue in there, but for now, it'll be okay. 1, 2, 3. Okay, let's check where we are in our color sequence. I've done a dark, light, dark, teal, blue, teal. I've gone through the colorway again. This would be a fine space to turn around. If I wanted to make a narrow project, like a scarf or maybe a small purse, this would be a good width to turn around. For the sake of this swatch, I do want to show you that you can make this wider along this chain by simply going through one more sequence of the colors. If I stopped here, I would be perfectly fine when I turn around on my 3rd row. I would be able to make my color sequence for the argyle pattern. However, if I wanted this to be wider, I could add another sequence of this dark, light, dark. So, for example, I have a dark, light, dark, teal, blue, teal. I'm going to put on another dark, light, dark. Now, I don't have to if I don't want to, but if I want it to be a little wider, which I do, so I'm going to add on another set of the 3 colors. This is a set, dark, light, dark. This is a set, teal, blue, teal. I'm going to add on another set of the dark, light, dark. Again, keeping 3 stitches per color. I'm almost out of chains there. 1, 2. Now I really am supposed to skip one and have another space to put a stitch in the chain, but since I'm out of chains, I'm just going to cheat and go into this very next one. Again, it's not going to be perfect, and that's okay. We are controlling this. We're planning where these colors land, and I needed one more of that dark color, so I just cheated and put it in the very next one. Okay, so again, I've gone through the color sequences: dark, light, dark, teal, blue, teal, dark, light, dark. Now I'm at the end and I need to turn around, and I need these side stitches to be a little tighter so I can have enough of this teal color to make the 3 stitches I need. So I'm going to switch over to my smaller hook, my I9 here, my 5.5. I already have 1 chain here. I'll just go ahead and do it again. I finished my last moss stitch, my single crochet here, and I'm going to chain 2, to make the sides. Now I'm going to turn around and let's do 3 of these teal color stitches. I'm going to go into the space in between these 2 very first single crochets. Here's one here, and there's one there. I'm going to go right in between there. One, 2, 3. And I'm going to switch back to my bigger hook. I was only using that one to make these stitches a little smaller to make sure I had enough to make those 3 stitches, since I had to go around that corner and have some space for those extra chains. 1, 2, 3. Now that's the dark blue color. I don't want that color, I want the teal color. So I'm going to loosen these so that I use up a little bit more of that dark blue. Now, if this is a little bit confusing for you, if you're not quite sure exactly what I'm doing, go back and watch my basics of color pooling video. It's the first video in a 3-part series that gives some fundamentals of color pooling. So if some of this is looking confusing to you, I do go over in more detail in that video. So I'll link that down below for you to check out if you'd like to. Let's continue on to the end. Continuing making 3 small stitches in each color, single crochet and a chain 1. Now with this one, I only got 2 stitches when I needed 3, and I used up some of my dark color in this stitch here for that one. I'm actually going to switch back over to my 6mm to help me use up less yarn, make these stitches a little smaller, a little tighter, so that it stretches on to where I need it to be. Now notice I went all the way back into this light color, and I'm going to restitch those. Color pooling is a little bit tedious in that manner, that sometimes you have to frog and restitch to get the colors to land where you want them to land to make your beautiful Argyle pattern. Color pooling is all about controlling where the colors pool together, and sometimes we have to tighten or loosen our tension or change hook sizes to make the colors do what we want them to do. We are in control of this, and we are making it do what we want. Now the stitches are having a little bit harder of a time landing correctly using that bigger hook, so I'm going to go ahead and switch to the smaller hook and use that for a minute to see if that will give me the size stitches that I need in each color. Don't be afraid to switch hooks if it's not working for you. Don't have much there. Let me go back and tighten a little bit more. Remember, I want 3 stitches per color. There we go. That landed much better. See, now that one landed with quite a bit of the dark blue. So I have the choice to either switch back to my larger hook for that color right there, or I could loosen my tension. Now it gets kind of tedious for me switching back and forth between the hooks. So I'm going to try just loosening my tension and see if I can get my 3 there. Now remember, this yarn was not designed specifically to color pool. We are just making it do that. See, there it goes. So it might take a little bit more finessing than a yarn that was specifically designed for color pooling. So don't get discouraged if you're having a little bit of trouble getting your stitches to land at first. It'll be okay. Okay, now we're at the end of row 2, and this is where we see the magic. All right, we're going to turn around and be on row 3, and we're going to see if our diagonal landed correctly. Fingers crossed it did, but let's see. Now that I'm at the end, I'm going to turn around and I'm going to stitch a little tighter to try to make sure I have enough of this dark color to make my 3 stitches. 1, 2, and third one in there. Oh, just barely, but there it is. Now, taking a look at this, these are stacked on top of each other, which is a great color pooling look, and you may be going for that. But I am not going for that. I am going for the Argyle pattern. So I'm going to need these to land at a diagonal. Now, with that being said, I have tried and tried over and over and over, undoing, doing again, back and forth, to get this to land on its own at a diagonal. Just doing the math, just redoing the stitches, and I could not get it to land correctly. So I've discovered a different way to make this do what I want it to do. Now, I need these to be at a diagonal. So I'm going to need my last dark blue stitch to be here so that it's diagonal from this one here. Now, in order to do that, I am only going to make 2 stitches in this color in this particular spot. I am not going to make 2 stitches in the other areas. In the other areas, I'm still going to do the regular 3 stitches. But right here, I'm going to make 2 dark blue stitches. Now, I'm just loosening my tension a little bit to make it where it only has dark blue. Since it's going around this corner, I've already used some of it up in these 2 stitches here, so it's a little easier to make just 2 stitches in this dark blue. Now you can see I do have a diagonal here of the dark blue, and that's what I'm looking for. Now this only has 2 stitches instead of the 3 that we've been working. So I'm going to take a stitch marker, which here's a helpful tip that I learned from Krista at the Secret Yarnery. These little clips, these are just from Dollar Tree, an 18 pack. As you can see, I've been using them. I'm going to mark right there, just anywhere on those dark blue stitches, so that I know I'm going to make 2 stitches in that section. Now, having this clip on there as I'm going along, it will get my attention to remind me, oh yeah, I'm at the section where I'm only doing 2 stitches. So I'm going to leave that on there as I work. Okay, so our next color is this light blue. So we need to have our 3 stitches in light blue. 1, 2, 3. Back to the dark color. Now, I'm going to use 3 stitches of this dark color because right here is the only space it's only going to get 2, and that's to make it have that diagonal that we're looking for. 1, 2, 3. Now, right here in this stitch, it has a little bit of that light blue on that last leg, that first part there. I'm going to be okay with it for now, but I'm going to keep a lookout for that. I don't want it to keep mixing colors as I go along because it will make my work muddy and I won't get the sharp Argyle lines that I'm looking for. Okay, back to the teal. Okay, I tightened up just a tad there to make sure I could get one more teal right there. I'm going to pull some of this out because it's catching a little bit. Okay, now I like the way my stitches are landing with this 5.5 millimeter. I do find myself having to pull a little tightly on this last one, so I may consider going down to a 5 millimeter if I feel like I'm having to do that too often, but for now I'm okay. Okay, next we should have that dark blue, excuse me, this regular blue, pretty crayon blue color. Let's check our diagonal just to be sure. If I take a look here, I do have these 2 diagonal, diagonal, diagonal. So my diagonal is working out correctly. Now again, on this last loop here, this is a dark blue, but I need it to be that teal color. So I'm going to loosen just a tad. So notice just a moment ago I said I'm having to do it too tightly on this last one. Now I'm having to do it looser on the last one. And again, that goes back to the fact that this yarn is not specifically designed to color pool. If it were, these color links would be exactly the same length in order to make it easier to color pool. But since they're not, we're going to have to adjust as we go through each color. And for me, I'm okay with that. That's part of the fun of color pooling, is to see if I can make it do it. And because we're in control of this outfit, we can. We are going to make this yarn do what we want it to do. All right, onto that dark blue. Here's a dark blue here, diagonally across. Very good. 2, and the third one here. Ugh, getting caught on it a little bit. All right. Back to the light blue, and we're still on our diagonal. Now, until I get going really hard on this, I am going to really watch that diagonal. I'm going to check after each color to make sure that I haven't gotten off track. And I'm especially going to watch that once I get back to the part that has our clip on it. Because if I'm not careful, I'll be going along making my 3, 3, 3, 3, and not remember that that one section gets 2, and then I'll mess it up. Again, this one here has a little bit of that light color on the dark stitch. I'm going to just watch out for that so that it doesn't keep doing that. Okay, back to the teal. And we're going around the corner. So again, I'm going to stitch a little bit tighter. I have gotten questions about whether or not that makes our edges wonky. I haven't experienced that with my work. It always ends up being just fine. Maybe it's because I'm tightening like that every time, so it works out. I'm not sure. But I went around that corner a little tighter. Now I'm checking, especially around corners, to make sure I land it correctly. I'm at a diagonal here. My next stitch is a dark blue, and that's next on my hook, so I'm doing well. Okay. Let's see, let's continue this down, see if we can get back to the other end and keep our diagonal the way it should be. Now, I'm noticing with this dark blue, each time I use dark blue, I'm going to have a lot left over. So that means one of two things. One, I can go back and undo this, and I can make a 4th stitch with this dark blue color if I'd like to, or I can just keep in mind every time I get to the dark blue that I need to stitch a little looser. I need to loosen my tension. Now, me, I don't want to go back and undo all of this. So I am going to stitch with a looser tension, or if I really can't get it to work, I could switch to a larger hook. Let's give that a try when I get to the dark blue. And there's also another option that I'll show you if this doesn't work. Let's see. Okay, so it didn't work even going to a larger hook. Now I don't want to go much larger because then these stitches will be very loose. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to make a couple of these stitches into half double crochets. So instead of using a single, I'm going to use a half double. All right, and once I did that, it landed on the teal where I needed it to be. Now I needed to use 2 half doubles. You may only need to use 1, or you may need to make all 3 of these a half double. And that's all of that is okay. Now, when you do use half doubles, it does make a larger space here. The spaces that we're working into are larger because these stitches are taller. And when we get back to that, I'll show you how to remedy that. I'm back to the blue, so I'm going to pay attention to my tension here, and remember that this piece is a little longer than the other pieces. So I'm going to need to loosen my tension or possibly sneak in a half double to make that section work correctly. All right, so that time loosening my tension worked out just fine. Okay, all right, now that I'm back to the end where my clip is, I know that in this dark color, I'm only going to use 2 stitches. Now before, I was going around the corner, so it worked out great. Let me see. 1, 2 chains on the end, and then 2. Okay, so this time I have too much of this dark color left over. I have another space here, so I could loosen my tension, or I could use the same trick that I used before and put in a half double crochet right there. And doing that made that work out fine. Now I am going to put my stitch marker back right here to get my attention. And you don't have to move it every time, but I'm just going to put it right there in that general area so that I remember that right there I'm only using 2 stitches. Let's continue down. 1, 2, 3. Now this is happening a lot where that light color is on the top of that dark stitch, and I just don't like that. I'm going to do this again, but I'm going to loosen these just a tad so that I don't have that light color on my hook last. There we go. Ugh, man, it's still doing it. All right, let's loosen some more. This is part of the struggle with color pulling is the frogging, the going back. So some people, color pulling isn't for them because they don't like the tediousness of adjusting the colors. But other people, like myself, find it interesting, and the joy of seeing the pattern develop overshadows the pain of having to frog and really pay close attention to where the colors are landing. So hopefully you find the joy in the pattern greater than the pain of the frogging. Okay, back to this blue color. So I'm stitching a little looser to try to make it where I don't have to frog back. Ugh, missed it. So I can make another choice here because as I go along, I've got to make decisions on what's going to work best for me. Again, I can decide to switch over to my larger hook whenever I get to that color. For me, that's tedious. I don't like it. So I think what I'm going to do instead is on my last stitch of that blue color, I think I'm just going to make it a half double every time so that I can not have to frog back each time. And I'm going to show you in just a moment when we get right back to it, how to correct this large hole there. Okay, so I've gone a little ways without checking. So now I'm going to make sure, I'm going to double check my diagonal is still in play. Yes, I have one more stitch to make. Now here's where I'm getting into where I have these large holes. Okay, I'm going to do one more stitch because this is a regular size hole here. And now I'm going to show you what to do. When I go into this hole, I'm not just going to go into it because if I do, I'm going to still have that large hole and that's not going to look very nice in my work. So instead, what you do is when you go into that space, you're going to actually go down and pick up the V stitches of that stitch underneath. So in this case, this light blue stitch, both of these stitches, these legs on the top part of that stitch, I'm going to slip my hook underneath both of those as I go through and pull up that dark blue. Now I've made that dark blue stitch and it's going to pull closed that hole. See how it's not a large hole anymore? That's what I'm looking for. If I were to just go into the stitch, it would keep that large hole. We don't want that. So instead I'm going to go into the top stitch, top of the stitch underneath both legs and pull it closed. Okay, now I've done 2 dark stitches and I have one more here. I need that diagonal, so I need to make one more dark stitch. Boom. Now let's do our 3 in the teal color, remembering to pull a little bit tighter so that we have enough to make that extra chain that we need to make our sides nice and straight. Boom, back to that dark blue. Now again, on the dark blue, it's been giving me issues. So I am going to pay attention to that color as I'm working. 1, 2, and I have quite a bit left. So that third one, I'm going to make into a half double to adjust for myself. Now you might not need to do that, but for me, when I'm working this pattern, that last blue stitch is going to need to be a half double in order for me to be able to keep my same hook, in order to be able to keep my stitches in the right order. All right, now we're well on our way. You can see our diagonal starting to form. They're starting. As you continue, it will grow and grow, and eventually will look like this. Now, I hope that this has been helpful for you. Continue on watching your project grow, watching your pattern develop, and enjoying your new color pulling skill. Bye-bye.